All right, let's talk about this. We are sitting in the craziest stock market behavior I've ever seen in my whole life. Jerry Powell is trying to slow inflation. Somebody on Wall Street Bets overlaid our current market with the dot-com bubble. And the rest of us are sitting here scratching our heads trying to figure out how to move forward. Meanwhile, the word transitory keeps getting dropped on us like the people's elbow. Speaking of transitory, do me a huge favor and transist that like button. By doing so, you will immediately be blessed by the stock market gods with returns and gains. Not really, but we can imagine, right? All right, now the reason why you guys are here is to talk about my top 3 favorite ETFs. Let's get right into them. Spoiler alert, they are VTI, VOO, and VGT. And I'm going to explain in this video why I love these 3 ETFs so that you can have a deeper understanding of what benefits they can bring to your portfolio. Starting off, I love VTI. So VTI is a very broad market index. It covers about 4,000 different equities, from large, medium to small cap equities. To put this in the most simple way possible, it basically tracks the whole US stock market. When it comes to fees, you always want to pay attention to what fees are charged when it comes to ETFs. This has an insanely low fee, so it is 0.03%. And essentially what that means is for every $10,000 you invest into VTI, you pay $3 a year in management fees. The top 5 holdings inside of VTI are Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Tesla. If we take a look at how VTI did historically over the last 5 years, it is up 106%. And you know what? If you had bought the dip here, you could have almost bought at the same price as it was 5 years ago. It was 113 then. It dipped to about 115, and that shows the importance of buying the dip. My personal strategy when it comes to buying ETFs like this is that I have the mentality where if I buy these ETFs, I'm going to hold them forever and I'll just give them to my kids when I croak. The nice thing about holding VTI is that it tracks the whole US stock market. So the chance of it hitting 0 are very, very low. And so if that happens, we have other things to worry about. When it comes to the stock market dipping that much, let's not get me on the subject of nachos anymore. And the last thing we got to talk about is what to expect as far as the dividend. Currently, it's sitting at a 1.22%. So as far as the next 2 ETFs that I'm going to talk about, there is actually quite a bit of overlap with all 3 of these even. And the reason why I'm talking about all of them is so that you can have a better understanding to see which one fits into your portfolio. Maybe you have VTI inside of your traditional IRA and VOO inside of your Roth IRA. I believe that each of these ETFs have a spot inside of a portfolio when it comes to performance and stability and things like that. And so I definitely feel like I wanted to talk about each one of these so that you can weigh out the benefits or the strengths to each of them and figure out which one of them fits best inside of your portfolio as well. On to VOO. I love VOO. What it does is it tracks the S&P 500. And one thing to note about the S&P 500 is a lot of investment planners or advisors, what they do is they use the S&P 500 as a benchmark. It's their goal to either meet or beat the S&P 500, and just meeting what the S&P 500 does is an absolute win, considering that it's a benchmark. It's what you should aim for to hit, because it's very simple and easy for you just to put your money into the S&P 500 ETF here, which is VOO, and hit that benchmark and hit par. And so that's a great way for a lot of investors, especially for people who are just starting out with investing and you are interested in paying an advisor 1 to 2.5% just to hit the benchmark of the S&P 500, which is something that you can easily do with this ETF. And that was my experience from working at an advisory, as I saw and I heard it in the office. And most of the time they're just aiming to hit what the S&P 500 was doing. And if they beat it, great. And if not, then we have other services. We give financial advice when it comes to buying cars and extra services on top of that. And they try to bake that into the fee that they're charging to manage your portfolio. And so this is something that you can easily do yourself just using and investing into VOO. Same thing here when it comes to fees as VTI. The fee is only 0.03%. So again, for every $10,000 you have invested, it is $3 a year to invest into VOO. And to take it back to what an advisor would charge, say they were only charging 1%, that would be literally $100 a year compared to the $3. It's like more than 30 times the cost of just investing into the S&P 500 through VOO. It's definitely a no-brainer when it comes to this stuff, in my opinion, especially if you're just starting out. Like if you have less than $50,000, this is something that you can do yourself when it comes to investing, in my opinion. And if you compare the 5-year chart to VTI had 106% returns over the last 5 years. We're sitting at a 99.5% return over the last 5 years. They had the same kind of dip. And that is because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of the same companies that are inside of this. Let's jump into the asset mix inside of VOO just so you can see how it compares. The biggest difference between VTI and VOO is that VOO is only large cap companies. In fact, it's the largest 500 companies in the United States. And VTI actually is a little different because they have small cap and medium cap, which means that those companies have more room for growth. That likely explains the reason why VTI has a little bit better performance over VOOs, because of the fact that small and mid-cap companies can grow a lot faster and get bigger gains and bigger returns that you'd likely get from large cap companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, and companies like that. VOO also has a dividend. It's not huge, but it's something, and it's always great to have it, a dividend, especially if you're doing the drip, you're reinvesting it back into itself. It has a 1.28% dividend yield per year. And last but not least, let's talk about VGT. It is a technology ETF, and this thing rock and rolls. Let's take a look at some of the numbers. Over the last 5 years, it is up a whopping 254%. It definitely commands some respect when you're taking a look at having growth inside of your portfolio. And I definitely am holding this in both of my Roth and my traditional accounts, and I am pretty stoked about this ETF. And let's jump into some more of those details here. So when it comes to gains, this one definitely is the king out of the 3 ETFs that I've talked about today. Now, one of the things you also got to take a look at is that it also is the riskiest. When it comes to risk, there's also a reward. And so the higher the risk, likely the higher reward. And this ETF has performed admirably since it was created. So taking a look at this to start off, one of the things when it comes to VGT is it has a higher expense ratio. It is 0.1%. So for every $10,000 you have invested into it, it is $10 a year. Still way less than you would pay an advisor and way less than you would pay in a lot of other ETFs. And so this one is money. As far as the risk is concerned, it is also the riskiest of the 3 that I've talked about. But over time, technology is definitely taking over in our lives. We're seeing it currently with the metaverse and all these crazy NFTs and cryptocurrency. Technology definitely needs to be part of every portfolio, in my opinion, especially if you are looking for growth. Here are the top 10 holdings inside of VGT. And if you take a look at these top 10, they actually comprise 57% of the whole ETF. And so it's very important for you to take a look into each one of these 10 to figure out if you truly want to invest into these companies. It's something that you need to do with each one of these ETFs, is take a look at least the top 10. If you believe in the companies, you believe in their goal and what they're trying to do, then it's definitely a good buy. Those are my top 3 favorite ETFs. That is it for this video. If you're interested in seeing how I went from 0 to $500,000 in net worth, go ahead and take a look at this video and have a nice day.